What's up, guys? The following project is actually a preview of my complete web developer course where I teach you full stack development from zero all the way to PHP full stack. If you're interested in that, check the link in the description. Otherwise, enjoy this. I wanted to release it because we built a JavaScript football scoreboard. Since it's about to be NFL kickoff tomorrow, I figured what better time than to release this project free on YouTube than now. So let's go, baby. I'm excited. Love football. Hope you enjoy this project, guys. Thanks for watching. Okay, guys, I want to welcome you to our next little JavaScript project here. And this is really just reinforcing a lot of what we already learned. So what this is it's a little football scoreboard. If you're not in the United States and you're taking the course, this is American football to you. You can see in our background here we have a football stadium. And what this does here is it allows the user to just click buttons. So for touchdown, for example, if we click touchdown, you'll know a touchdown, or at least most of you will. Most of you are going to be U.S. people. A touchdown is worth 6 points in American football or in football, right? So if you click touchdown, the home team gets 6 points. Same thing for the away team. If you click extra point, we know the extra point is just worth 1 point, so it'll just go up by 1. So we'll increment by 1, okay? And then field goals, we know are 3 points. So you can kind of click each button, and you can add to the score. So 6 points, 1 point, 3 points. So if you're not familiar with American football, look it up or learn it. It's the best game ever. Most entertaining sport in the world for sure. But I want to show you another feature that's different. So we've already hooked up buttons and incremented and changed values. But there's another thing that we're going to learn here. So you notice I have 41. As soon as I hit 42, we get another message that appears that says home team wins. And then we get a reset button here. So if we click reset, it resets. So right now I'm using some logic on the back end called an if-else statement, and that's another key aspect of programming. If-else means basically in programming language to the computer, if this happens, do this, right? So I have some code in the background that says, hey, if the score reaches 42 or higher on either home or away, put the message of who wins and then allow the user to reset the scoreboard. Because in American football, if you score as many points as like 42, normally the team that scores 42 is going to win every time. I mean, that's a lot of touchdowns to score. It doesn't happen too often, but if a team ever reaches 42, I'm sure if you look up the records of like win-loss, like the team who scores 42 wins almost every time, right? So I just wanted to kind of add that little logic in there to teach you if-else statements, which is a whole new concept. And we'll get into that as we build the project. But same thing for the away team. If we keep scoring points up to 42 or above, we'll get our message, away team wins, and then do you want to reset the game? And then if you reset it, they go back to 0. So this will be it's a fun project. Again, it just really hammers down what we've learned, and we add one little new thing in there called if-else statements. True, false, booleans, whatever you want to call them, we're going to learn about them. And that's really, a key aspect of adding logic to your web apps is having, rules to where if certain things happen, maybe certain elements appear or different things happen on the page. All right, guys. So in the next video, we'll set up our files and we'll get started building this thing. All right, guys. So let's go ahead and set up our files for our football scoreboard. So I'm going to create a new folder and I'll call it Football Scoreboard. Then I'll open up a new Visual Studio Code and drag it on in. All right, and we'll set up our index.html. We'll need a style.css. We need a JavaScript file, so I'll call it app.js, and I need an image folder. And then let's do our boilerplate, our HTML boilerplate. I'll put football, JS, football, scoreboard as my title for my web page. And then let's link our CSS. So we'll do our link tag, and our href is going to be our style.css. And we'll link our JavaScript page. So we'll make our script tags, and we'll make the source app.js. And then let's go ahead, we'll put an h1. Say test, make our style.css say h1 color red, and we'll make our app.js file, we'll do an alert, and we'll say when the page loads, tell me if the JS is connected. So again, we're just testing out to make sure all of our files are connected. You want to always do that first when you start a project to make sure you're set. So let's minimize this and go live and make sure everything's working. So right away our page is loading and our alert is popping off, so we know that's good. Our JavaScript is connected, and then we can also see that our test is red or H1, so we know our CSS is connected. So all of our files are connected correctly here. I am going to go on my JavaScript, or sorry, in my CSS really quick and do our little CSS reset. So we'll say margin 0, padding 0, box sizing, border box, and I'm going to change the font for my web page to Arial. Go. And then we don't need this test text anymore. And then we need to grab our image for our football stadium. So I'm going to go grab it from pixabay.com. And in the search bar, I'm going to type American Football Stadium, because if you just type football, it's going to show you a bunch of soccer stuff. And let's see if I can find that image. That's American football. Here it is. So this is the one I'm selecting. There's more than one if you want to select a different background or a different image for your background. I'm going to select this one. And I'm going to download 1920 by 797. I'm going to rename my file Stadium -bg for background, and then I'm going to go to my downloads folder and just drag that in. So it's right here, Stadium BG, and put that in my image folder for the project, and now it should be in there. Let's see, there it is. So we have our image, our fonts, all of our files are connected. We're set to go here. This is how I like to set up all my projects in the beginning. Get all my files connected, get whatever images I'll need, and set my font, and do the project. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. In the next one, we'll start building out the HTML for our scoreboard. All right, guys, so we got our file set up here. The first thing I want to do, this is our project now. This is what we're building. The first thing I want to do is I want to actually add the big background image to the page first to kind of set the stage for everything. So let's go ahead and do that. We've done this before a couple times. So if you remember how, just pause the video and add it yourself. If not, go ahead and do this with me. So what we need to do is we need to actually go into our CSS, and then we need to add the background CSS property. So we can just say background, or you could even say background image. Either one works. We need to do URL, and then we need to tell this to go to the image folder where our image is. So we have to say img, which is the name of our image folder, / and then there it is, stadium-bg.jpg. And then we can save. Okay. So now we can see we have our image, but it's like way too bright and it's tiling itself. It restarts right here. So we got to fix all that with some more CSS. So to do that, this time I'm going to show you the shorthand way. I don't remember if I showed you this or not, but we could actually, right after the image, we could say no repeat, and then space, center, and then space, center, / cover. So what we're saying is do not repeat like you're repeating. Be in the center of the page, and then we want you to be centered, and we want you to be cover, which means cover the whole page. So if we save, now it's going to do that. But now it's not covering the whole page how we want it. So what we have to do is change the height. And we want the height to be 100 VH, or 100 viewport heights. And that means as big as the screen is for the user without scrolling down, that's how big we want our image to be. We want it to take up the whole screen. So what we do is we go below here and we say height 100 VH, 100 viewport heights, and save. And now it'll stretch the image to cover the whole screen. But now we have one more problem. If we look at our original design, the image is too light, so we want to make it a little bit darker so that our scoreboard pops out better. So what we can do is add the linear gradient. Remember, we can put a fake little basically screen over this that you can't see, but it's there with CSS, and then color it in with some blackness to create like a shadow effect. So for that, I'm going to say, I'm going to go in front of my URL for our background image. This is still on the background line. And I'm going to say linear gradient. And then I'm going to say RGBA. And then another parentheses. And then we're going to say 20, 20, 20, which is like a shade of, basically it says black. So we want it to be black. And then we want it to have something called an alpha of 0.7, which means be pretty dark, I think. So 0.9 would be the darkest, 0.1 would be the lightest, so 0.7 is pretty dark. So we want to do that. That'll give us a gradient going across one part of the page. And now it's going to mess up our background for just a second because we have to add the other gradient for the other part. So that's the first part, now we have to add the other part. So then what we're going to do is we're going to go outside of our parentheses for this RGBA and put a comma. And then we're going to say RGBA again, parentheses, and then same thing, 20, 20, 20, 0.7. And then we need to put another comma in front of our URL. And there's our image. So now we have that linear gradient. I know that's a complicated piece of code, but that's just what it does. You don't have to go get into the weeds and really understand it. Just know that that snippet of code will produce a darker background, and then you can control how dark it is by controlling this. So if we go 0.9 and 0.9 on the back end and save, it'll get even darker. If we went down to 0.4, 0.4, it'll be pretty light. But we want 0.7 is a good one because it's just the best from me testing it. So we'll go with 0.7. I mean, you can change it if you want to whatever you want, okay? So that's it. Our background image is now set up. So in the next video, we'll actually build the scoreboard itself, or we're going to do the HTML first, and then we'll do the CSS. All right, guys, so it's time to write our HTML for our scoreboard. So looking at our design, we're going to have a container for the scoreboard itself. We're going to give it a height and a width, and then we're going to have, remember, there's going to be like a paragraph or something up here where our message comes across who wins. So we're going to leave that area kind of blank with just like maybe like an empty paragraph. And then we'll have another div that we'll call like scoreboard flex container or something like that. And then within that div is going to be the home and the away scores with their names and their buttons and everything. And we'll use that container to use Flexbox to put everything side by side. And then for our buttons, we'll probably use Flexbox again, and we'll make it so that two are on top and one's on bottom in the center using Flex Wrap. And yeah, that's really it for the HTML, so not too complicated. So what we'll do first is we'll add the winning paragraph and the button last, because that'll be like an extra feature that we add. For now, we'll focus on the core functionality, which is, hey, we want this to start at 0. We want home and away labeled clearly. We want, buttons and a little container around our number. And then we want the buttons to work, right? So that's our core functionality, and we'll add the other two features of the reset button and who wins later. So let's start out with our HTML. So first I'll do a container class div for the scoreboard itself. So I'll say dot scoreboard container, and then we'll do another div within there, and we'll say scores dash flex dash container. And again, when we say flex and then container, that means, hey, this is going to be in between these divs. We're going to put a bunch of information that we're going to flex later on, put them side by side. So we need a home team container and an away container that has the buttons and everything in it. So first we'll do the home team. So let's say dot home team container. And then in here, we're going to put the heading, like a heading for home, the score and the container for the score, and then the buttons. So first we'll do the heading. So we'll say we'll have an H2, and I'll give it a class of team-heading. And then within there we'll put home. So if we go to our actual design, there's our home. Okay. And I just like to look at this while I'm building so it's clear what we're doing. And next we have to do like a container, and then so a div, and then the actual score itself to go inside it. So let's go below our home and we'll say dot score container. And then within our score container, we'll do a paragraph, and I'll give it an ID of home team score L for element. And you know already that that's probably how we're gonna use that ID to select it with JavaScript, right? So we have home team score L, and then we'll give it a separate class for styling purposes of score that we'll also put on the away team score. And then we'll just hard code 0 in there to start. So if we go back and see what we're actually doing so far, now we have home, we have the 0. So we're getting there. So below our score container, so it starts here and ends here. So if we go below this div, we need to have a buttons container to contain all of our buttons. So let's say dot a div with the class of buttons container. And then we need 3 buttons in here. So we'll say button, and I'll give it the type of button. This is going to be for touchdown. So we'll say touchdown. And then we're going to give it an ID of home-touchdown. And then we'll give it a class of BTN, which every button will have for styling purposes. And then let's just make this bigger so it's clear to see what we did. We need 2 more buttons. We need a button for the extra point and field goals. So let's do that. So let's just copy this button down a couple times. Okay. And then the ID for this second button down is going to be home extra point. So we'll say home extra point. POINT. Okay. And then it'll have the class of button still. It'll still be a button type, but we have to change the text. And the text is going to be extra point. Okay. Oops. And then lastly, we have home. It's going to be field goal. So we'll say home field goal, all one word. Class of button, type of button, and then we'll put field goal for the text. So we'll say field goal and save. Let's go look at what we have here. So if we look, now we're starting to see it take shape here. So there's the home, here's the score, here's all of our buttons. And then that's all we're going to do. I'll end the video here. I don't want this to get too long. And the next part of the project, we'll copy most of this down and make all of our away HTML. All right, guys, so we got our home element HTML stuff here. So now we got to do the away stuff. So again, we get to do my favorite thing, which is copy and paste. So let's take our home team container. So it starts here and ends here. And we can copy the whole thing and go below and paste. And then we just got to really change our class names and IDs on stuff. So we'll say this is the away team container. And then we need to change this from home to away team score L. Need to change this text to away. And then we need to change our button IDs to away. So we'll say away touchdown. And then we'll say away, away extra point, and away field goal. And that should probably be pretty much all we have to do on that front. So now we have our home and away. So we have all of our buttons for everything now. So again, just make sure your IDs are now, you have to change what we just changed for the away. Else when we go to select it for the JavaScript, it's not going to be, it's not going to work correctly. So make sure you do this now. Do not make that mistake, else you're going to be pulling your hair out trying to figure out why your stuff isn't working. All right, so that's going to be it for this video. Super short. Just make our HTML for our away. And the next video, we'll style everything up. And since a lot of the elements here share class names, everything will get styled. So, we'll be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. So we should be able to get the styling done in just 1 video here and then be on to our JavaScript, which is good news. All right, guys. So we have our ugly little HTML app here with no styling. So we need to style it up and make it look like this so that it looks at least halfway decent, right? So we'll go ahead and do that now. So the first element that we'll select in style is going to be our scoreboard container. So let's select that class, and then let's look at our actual project here. So we'll say dot scoreboard container, and it's going to have a background color of black. There it is. And then I'm going to give this a height of 500 pixels and a width of 750 pixels. And then just to show you what that looks like. Okay, so right now it's just up against the edge. We'll center it with margin left and right auto. So we'll say margin, top and bottom we'll say 4 rem, and then left and right we'll say auto. And that'll center it in the page. We need to add a white border and put some border radius on it to curve the edges. So let's say border, 2 pixels, solid, and then I'm going to give it like an off-white color of F5, F5, F5 hex code. That gives it a border. And then I'm going to say border radius, and I'm going to give it a border radius of 8 pixels. And then that's going to be it for like our scoreboard in the outside part. Next, I need to select our scores flex container so I can put our scores side by side and style that stuff up. So we can't see our text right now for our headings because it's pure black, but we'll fix that. So let's select our scores flex container. Copy that. Select it by its class name. And then let's say display flex. Now they're side by side. Say align items center. And justify content center. And then we'll do text align center. And now everything is kind of scrunched up, so we got to use, remember we're going to use what we always do is we use column gap to put some basically padding this way in between each element. So we'll say column gap of 5 rem, give it some separation. And then I'm going to say I want some padding top of 3 rem to push everything down a little bit. And now we have to, our heading and our score and everything is hidden. It's there, but it's hidden, so we got to fix that. So let's do that here. So we need to do our team heading. So let's select our team heading class. Copy that. Use our dot selector and paste it. And then for our headings, we're going to use the same color as our border, the F5. And then I want them to be all capitalized, all the letters to be capitalized. So I'm going to use a property called text transform uppercase. And then I want their font to be bigger. So I'm going to say font size 36 pixels. There we go. Starting to look a little bit better. And now next, if we look at our design, we have to do our score. So there's like a border around the score. And then the score is in the center of this border or box, which is just a div, right? So we'll do that now. So let's grab our score container. So I'll say copy this one. And we'll say dot score container. And we're going to give it a border. So we'll say border, 2 pixels, solid, and that same F5 color. So there it is. And then we'll give it a border radius of 8 pixels like the rest of our design. And then we'll give it a height of 100 pixels and a width of 100 pixels to make it a perfect square. And then we have to center. We want this to be centered in the design. So again, we're going to use margin auto to center our little boxes here. So we'll say margin, and we'll give it some space top and bottom. So we'll say 2 rem top and bottom, auto left and right. So that gives it space top and bottom and then centers it back in our each little box container. And then we have our score in here. See, our scores are way up here at the top. You can't see them because we didn't change their color yet, but they're up here at the top, and I want to center them. So let's actually make those visible really quick before we do anything else. Let's say dot score for the score itself, and we'll give it a color F5, and we'll say font size 44 pixels. I want our scores to be nice and big. And now I want it centered in each box like our design, and you can actually use Flexbox to achieve that. So we can go back up here to our score container, and we can say display. Now remember, this This is the container. This is the score itself. So everything in the container is going to follow what I say. So we can say display, flex, align item center, justify content, center. And that will actually center the zeros perfectly in the box. Okay? And that's just another trick you can use with Flexbox to center stuff. So it's really useful. So we got that. We got our score already styled up. Next, we need to do our buttons container. So let's select our buttons container class. And we'll use our dot selector. And then we're going to do display, flex, align item center, justify content, center. So it's not going to change anything right away. And then what we'll do is we'll give them some space in between them. So we'll say gap, 1 rem. So that's basically top, bottom, left, and right, 1 rem of gap. And then we'll leave it like that for now. We'll style our actual BTN class, which will style all of our buttons. So let's grab that. So we'll grab BTN, say dot BTN. And we're going to say background color. And it's going to be like a reddish, orangish color. So we'll say hex code FF5733. And then we're going to say color, and we're going to use that same off-white color we've been using to stay consistent with our design. We'll say border, 1 pixel, solid, and the same color, the F5 color. Say border radius, 8 pixels. And we'll give it a height of, each button will have a height of 40 pixels and a width of 120 pixels. So there's our buttons now. And then when we go over our buttons, and we can't see them too well because it's getting cut off, but there they are. They're kind of going off the screen. We'll fix that. When I hover over my buttons, I want it to be the pointer. I don't want it to be the regular mouse cursor. I want it to be that little hand. So we'll say cursor pointer, and now we'll get the hand. And now we have a big problem, which is our design, our buttons are wrapping onto the next line. So we have to change our flex to flex wrap wrap. So let's do that because we want our buttons to all stay, we don't want them going off the page like that. So if we just go here to our buttons container and we say flex wrap wrap and save, there we go. Then we get that effect where if the one button doesn't fit, it wraps onto the next line. And that's going to be it for our base CSS. So here's what we just did. Here's the original design. So as I switch tabs, it looks pretty identical so far, maybe just a little different. But again, as we go on and build other stuff, it'll look totally identical. So that's our main CSS. And the next video, we're going to do our core JavaScript. So we're going to make our buttons work and actually add points to each score visually. Okay guys, so we have our design complete. It looks pretty much identical to the original. All of our buttons are here. Everything is here that we're going to need so far. And now we have to get into our JavaScript and actually write out the logic of the game or of the scoreboard and start reflecting the score and adding event listeners to our buttons so that when we click them, they do what we want them to do. Okay? So first, let's go into our app.js folder. And we need to first tell JavaScript that there's a home score and away score, because right now we have the elements in HTML that signify home and away score, but JavaScript has no way of knowing what the heck that is. So what we have to do first is put the logic in for our scoreboard. So I'm going to make a comment here, and I'm going to make it say scoreboard logic. Or really, we could just say score logic, because we have to represent something that's the score to JavaScript. So what we'll do to do that is just make 2 variables. We'll say let home score equals, and it's going to be 0 by default. And then we'll do let away score equals 0. And that way JavaScript has something to go off of and something that we can reference for what actually represents how much the score is at any given time. And that doesn't make sense yet. It should, because we did pretty much the same thing in our little mini calculator project. But if you're still not getting it, you will as this project progresses, because we're going to use this logic again. So we'll have the logic down there. And now what we'll do first is let's just see if we can get one of these buttons to work and reflect the score. So, or let's just see actually if I just want to get one of the buttons to work in this video, and then we'll go from there because I don't want the video to be super long and confusing. Let's grab our touchdown button first and put an event listener in there. So I'll make another comment, and I'm going to put DOM home team buttons on here. So all of my home team buttons, which is there's going to be 3 of them, this is where I'm going to grab them all by their ID and select them with JavaScript. So let's say we'll call our first button, we'll say const, and this will be called home touchdown button, or BTN, equals document dot get element by ID. And then we got to grab our home touchdown button ID. So our touchdown button for home is here. The ID is just home-touchdown. So we'll put that in our parentheses and our quotes here so that those can be linked. All right. And then now we have to put an event listener on this button. So let's go do that. We'll go down here and we'll say, we'll just make a section just for event listeners. Okay. And then for event listeners, we'll say home touchdown button dot add event listener, parentheses quotes, and we're going to have this fire off an event when we click the button. So we'll put a click event listener. And then now we have to make a function or name a function that we want this thing to use when we click the button. So what we'll call this is home TD for touchdown. So home TD func. Home TD function. And now let's go down and reference that function in our functions area. So let's make a comment. We'll say functions. That's where all of our functions will go. And I just like to put comments. This is how I just like to organize all my stuff in JavaScript. So there's going to be a fair amount of JavaScript in this project, so we want to keep it all like super organized. So we'll say functions, and now we're going to reference our home touchdown function, which has the click event on there. So this function is going to run whatever code we want it to when we click on the touchdown button. So let's write our function. So to do that, we use our keyword, which is function, and then we name our function. We already have a name for it. It's home DD func, and then we'll put empty parentheses, and then curly braces. And for now, when we click the button, we'll just log to the console. So we can say console.log, and then we'll just put a little string in here in our quotes, and we'll just say you scored a touchdown. Okay, so we can test out if that's working by viewing the console when we click it. So let's right-click and inspect, click on console, and let's just click that touchdown button and see if we get our message. So on click, boom, you scored a touchdown. We keep clicking it, it'll keep firing off that click event. So that's good. We have our touchdown button working. So in the next video, we're going to continue on with our touchdown button so that when we click it, it actually adds to the score of the home team. All right, guys, so our touchdown button is working. We're getting our log to the console, but now I want to actually make it do something and reflect it in our app. So what we're going to do here is the steps that we have to do is let's write them out here. Let's use pseudocode. So let's use a little pseudocode comments. We have to add 6 to the home team score variable, because a touchdown is 6 points in American football or football. We then have to show the score on screen using the, let's see, what did we name this? What did we name our score? Home team score LID. Okay. Using the home team score L ID. So we have to probably select this with JavaScript, right? And then we need to actually reflect the score. So we can say make home team we'll say home team score element equal to home score, so that it reflects on screen. So step 1, add 6 to the variable of home score. So that's this. So it's actually, we can do that now. So we can say home score, since remember we used a let variable, and on a let variable we can reassign the value, so it doesn't have to always be 0. So we can say home score, and then remember now we have to do what's called incrementing to it, or incrementing the variable. So we can do that in 2 different ways. We can say home score, and remember we want to add 6 to this, so we can say home score is now equal to home score plus 6. And then if we console.log home score out, let's click the button, we're getting 6. If we click it again, we're getting 12. So it is incrementing, and you scored a touchdown, there are little messages coming up. So again, see how we're using the console to kind of check our work? This is how you use the console. So you can do it that way. Home score equals home score plus 6. So remember, if it starts at 0 plus 6, it'll be 6. If you click the button again, it'll add another 6. It'll be 12. You click the button again, it'll add another 6. That'll give you 18. Now, instead of writing all that, you could also just do it this way. Home score plus equals 6. So kind of just like a shorter way of writing it. It'll do the same thing. If we click the touchdown button, 6. If we click it again, 12. Click it again, 18. Okay? So now we want to get it so that it actually shows in our little score box here, the score, not just in our console. So to do that, we need to grab our home team score L. So let's do that. So these are our buttons, event listeners. So let's say DOM. So remember, the DOM is the document object models, what that stands for, and that just refers to our web page. So by me calling this DOM elements, I'm just saying, hey, these are like HTML elements that I'm grabbing from my page. That's just where they're going to go. So we'll say DOM elements here, and then we'll say const, and we'll say home team score L for home team score element equals document dot get element by ID, and then our parentheses and quotes, and we've got to copy and paste our home team score LID in there. Let's copy that and paste that in. Okay, so now we have that, so now we can actually use it in our with JavaScript because we selected it and we put a variable on there so we can select it quickly whenever we need to. And now what we'll do down here is we'll say home score L, which is this 0 right here, home score L, and then we want to change it to reflect what's actually being done here by adding 6. We don't just want it in the console, so we'll say home score L, and then remember how we can add content or change the text of an element is with text content. So we can say home score L dot text content equals, and then we'll just say say equals, and then we'll just say we want it to equal whatever the current home score is. So we'll just say home score. So let's break down again what our code's going to do. So we can get rid of these now. This little pseudocode. So let's break this down. We have an event listener. So first we have our home score, which is, it's not an HTML element. It's just something to represent the home score to JavaScript so that JavaScript knows that there's a such thing as a home score, okay? And that's set to 0. Then we have our touchdown button, so we grabbed our touchdown button and we put it into a variable. We added an event listener to that variable that says, hey, when we click the button, I want you to run a function, which we called homeTDfunc, okay? When we click homeTDfunc, we're going to reassign the value of our home score variable, and we're going to add 6 to it every time we click it. So it'll go 6, 12, 18, 24. It'll just keep going up and up and up. Then we logged it to the console and make sure that it was working. And now what we had to do is we had to select our actual score element, which is the 0 right now. Save that to a variable. We call that home team score L. And then we use that variable to use the textContent method, or a method is just a built-in function for JavaScript. Okay? So we said, hey, I want to change the textContent to reflect whatever the current home score is when we click the button. Meaning every time we click it, it'll reflect the home score which is +6. The home score, remember, the home score is just logic, but by using text content, we're saying, hey, whatever that variable is in the back end that we can't even see, make whatever this number is, add 6 to it so that it reflects whatever this number is. So if we touchdown, it's working. 6, 12, 18, and you can even see it firing off in the console. 24, 30, it'll just keep going up because every time we click the button, just to break it down really simply, we're saying add 6 to the home score, and then using the text content, reflect whatever the new current home score is in this box, which is the home score L. Remember, it's just like a paragraph with the home team score L on ID on it, okay? And then it says 0. So we can just keep clicking touchdown, and it'll keep adding 6. Okay, so our other buttons aren't working yet. We'll fix that in the next video, but that's basically essentially what we just did, okay, guys? So it might seem a little complicated if you're still brand new to programming, but it's actually very logical, and the more you build stuff, especially when you start building stuff on your own, the more you'll understand this stuff. All right, so in the next video, we'll go ahead and we'll get our other home team buttons working here. Okay, guys, so we got our touchdown button working. And basically all the steps that we did by getting our touchdown button working are going to be identical to getting our extra point and field goal buttons working. I just realized I did not spell extra point right. So let's go to our HTML and fix that. Sorry about that. Hopefully you guys caught that before me. I put extra P space point. So just extra point. An extra point. That's the bad thing about copying and pasting code is if you have it written wrong in the first part, it's going to be wrong wherever you copy it, right? But that's okay. We fixed it. We noticed it. All right, so we have extra point. So let's do our extra point button next since it's right next to this one. So same steps we just did. First, we're going to select the button with JavaScript. So we'll go in our home team buttons, and we'll go below that. We'll say const. And we can call this one home. I'll say, we'll write it out. We'll say extra point button equals document dot get element by ID, and then we'll copy and paste it. And honestly, like our variable names are pretty long, but I'd rather have long variable names that state exactly what something is than have to guess if I ever have to go back into the code, or if another developer ever looks at the code. I want it to be painfully obvious what everything is. A lot of developers, especially like seasoned ones or more senior developers, they get like really abbreviation happy, and they just abbreviate everything like hardcore. So their variables are like really short, but I've never been a fan of that. So especially if you're new, I'd say get in the habit of making yourself painfully obvious unless you get hired by a company that makes you abbreviate everything a ton. So we're grabbing our extra point ID for that button. So for the home team, so it should be right here. Home extra point is our ID that we need. And we'll just put that in between our quotes and parentheses. And now we'll add an event listener to it. So we'll say home extra point button dot add event listener parentheses, and then again we're going to do click in our quotes, and then we got to name a function, and we'll call this home extra point func. And then we'll go down here in our functions, and now we have to make a function with that name, right? So we'll say function, parentheses, curly braces. And in this one, we want to, again, we're going to increment the home score. So we'll say home score. So our home score variable plus equals. And an extra point is just 1 point. It's when you kick a little field goal after you score your touchdown. So we're just going to add 1 to the score. Okay. Oh, and I forgot to name our function. Sorry about that. This is going to be referencing our home extra point func. And the cool thing about VS Code is it'll just autofill stuff, so you don't have to type it out again. So we're going to add 1 to the home score variable. And then we also, again, we need to select our home team score element, which we already have, so we can just re-access that. We can say home team score L, and then we need to use textContent to make sure that this goes up by 1 every time that it shows in our actual element. So we'll say dot textContent equals, and then again, just whatever the home score is, and we click the button. So after you do your math, just reflect that home score that we're adding 1 to on our actual page, and we're doing that using text content. So let's see if that works. So we'll say we scored a touchdown, 6 points, and then we kicked our extra point, boom, and now it just goes up by 1, which is 7. So that's good. That's exactly what we wanted. If we click just clicking extra point, it'll just go up by 1, okay? Exactly what we wanted. So let's refresh the page, get back to 0, and then let's just go ahead and select our home field goal button and do the same thing. So let's go to our elements, say const home field goal btn equals document dot get element by ID. And if you already know what to do, guys, since this is the 3rd time, just pause the video and try to do it yourself, okay? So let's grab the home field goal ID, and then let's put an event listener on it. So let's say home field goal btn dot add event listener, and then we'll do a click, and then we got to name our whatever function we want to reference. So we'll just call this home field goal func. And then let's go down here and create our function for that. So same thing we've been doing. Say function home field goal func, parentheses, curly braces. And now a field goal in football is 3 points. So we'll say we have to select our home score. And since it's 3 points, it'll be adding 3 points onto the score. So we'll say home score plus equals 3 every time we click on the button, add 3. And then same thing. And honestly, what we can do is we can just copy this. Home score L dot text content, and then again, just tell it to reflect whatever the current home score is after we click the button. We don't got to put any different code in here, because all we're doing is saying, hey, just mirror whatever our new home score value variable is, whatever it is now after we click the button, after adding everything together. Just reflect that new thing with text content. That's all you have to do, is equals home score, okay? Because remember, this is the actual element, and it's just keeping track of whatever the value of our elements up here is for our logic. So let's test it. So touchdown, extra point 1, field goal 3. Yep, and there we go. There's 10. Okay. So that's it for all of our home buttons. We'll stop the video here, and in the next video, we'll do our away buttons. Now, I want to challenge you. Try it. After seeing everything that I've done here, try to, on your own, get all the away buttons to work the same way, okay? If you can. If not, that's okay. We'll do it together, but I would encourage you to try that. Okay, guys, so we got all of our, let's make this big here. We got all of our home team buttons working, but our away team buttons are still not working. So in this video, we're going to do all of our away team buttons. Again, we're just going to be doing pretty much the identical steps that we did for the home team buttons, just selecting the buttons, adding an event listener, a function, and then reflecting the score with our variable and text content for the actual HTML element. So let's go ahead and just do that now. So I'm going to make another comment for away team buttons. So we got to grab our away touchdown button. So let's grab that. So we'll say const away touchdown button equals document dot get element by ID. Then we'll copy and paste our ID. So we have away touchdown right here. We'll copy that, paste it in here. And then let's just grab our other 2 buttons really quick. We're going to go through this part a little faster because, again, it's just the identical stuff. So we'll say const away extra point button equals document dot get element by ID. Let's grab our extra point button, so that'll be away dash extra point. And then last we have field goal, so we'll say const away field goal btn equals document dot get element by ID, and we'll paste away dash field goal in here. Now let's add event listeners onto all of them. So first we'll do touchdown. Let's say away touchdown btn dot add event listener. It's going to be click, and then this will be away touchdown func save, and then we'll do away extra point button dot add event listener click, and this will be away extra point func. And then last we have away field goal button dot add event listener click, and this will be away field goal func. Okay, and now we can do our actual functions to make them work. So first we'll do function, and we want to do away touchdown func. And then again, we're going to do the same thing. So this time we're going to say away score instead of home score. We'll do away score plus equals 6. And then we're going to say away team score L. Oh, we actually have to grab our away team score. We have not done that yet. So let's grab that. Let's say const away team score L equals document dot get element by ID. Let's grab our away team score L, which is just that paragraph with the away team score in it, just like our home one. Put it in our parentheses. Oops. Okay, and now we can select it. So we can say away team score L dot text content plus equals, text content equals whatever the away score is, and that should add 6 to it every time. So if we click our touchdown for our away score, 6, 12, 18. So that appears to be working. Cool. So let's do our other two functions. Got function, and our next function is going to be extra point button. So away extra point button, extra point func. And for this, we're going to say away score plus equals. We're just going to be adding 1. And then we can literally just copy this away score TML dot text content equals whatever the new away score is. See if that works. So extra point is 1, touchdown 12, field goal. We just got to make that work now. So let's do that. So we have away, what do we name it? Away field goal func. Okay. So we'll say function away field goal func. And now we're going to say away score plus equals 3. And then same thing, just copy this code, paste it in there, and now we should be getting 3. So let's make this bigger. So field goal 3, 6, 9, good. Extra point 1, 10. Touchdown is 6, 16. 16, 7, 3. So it appears that all of our buttons are working for the scoreboard. So that is good. And again, I know we went faster through that second part, but again, it was really just doing the same thing as the first part. So hopefully you're able to catch on and get some of that by yourself, I hope. And if not, again, that's okay, guys. I was a very slow learner at this stuff too, trust me. So next, what I want to do is we're going to create the other two. We're going to create the other two features of our little scoreboard to where whenever somebody hits 42 or bigger, we're going to show who wins, and then we're going to give the user a chance to reset the game. So remember, 42 is like our winning score, and you can set the score whatever you want, but that's what we're going to implement next is another button and then another element. And we're going to do that implementing something called a if-else statement, which is another big part of programming that we're going to learn for the first time. All right, guys, so we got our scoreboard all set here. Okay, all buttons work for home and away team. Now, what I want to do is I want to implement the winner text in the button. So we're going to use some logic to tell JavaScript or our web browser, hey, when a team hits 42 or higher, they win the game. And then I want a paragraph or some text to display showing the winner. And then I want a reset button that will reset the scores and kind of reset the football game here, okay? So let's go ahead and do that now. We'll do one thing at a time. So first, we'll just probably do the winner message now. And then in another video, we'll do the button. Because just like CSS, when you're building stuff or adding features, you just want to do one little thing at a time before you move on to the next thing. Okay? It's always a good way to go about it. So let's get started here. So let's go to our HTML. And there's several ways you can do this. I'm going to show you like the easiest way for beginners to understand. But just know that like with everything else in programming or CSS or whatever, there's like 50 different ways we could implement that. But I'm just going to show you. I like to keep it like super simple, everything that I do. Even when I'm coding by myself, I don't like to do a bunch of fancy stuff that requires too much thinking. I'm a simple guy. So I want our paragraph to appear up here. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it right below in our scoreboard container within our scoreboard. And then I will put a paragraph down with an ID of winner dash message. And we're just going to keep it blank for now, but it is there. And then let's go to our JavaScript and select winner message. So we'll say const winner message equals document.getElementById. And then we'll put our parentheses and our quotes, and we'll paste that winner message ID in there. So let's grab winner message, paste that in. All right, and then we can verify that we selected that correctly by saying console.log winner message. And we'll go right click inspect. And yes, we are selecting winner message element. It is showing it. It's logging that out in the console. So we're good to go there. Again, guys, when you're building real stuff, especially as it gets bigger and more complicated, it's always good to check your work as you go by logging stuff out to the console. So next, we have to actually write some logic for that. Okay? And we're going to put that in a function. So we haven't done this before, but I'm going to show you something called an if-else statement that allows you to make decisions in code. So we'll go over it in this project, and then after this project, if you're not super getting it, don't worry, because I'll have several other lessons where we just practice if-else statements to try to hammer it down in your brain a little bit more. But I want you to see it, how it actually acts in the real world first, so that you have I want you to look at the big picture first. So first, let's do the function, because it's going to be in a function so that we can call it whenever we want. So we'll say function winner logic is what we'll call it. Parentheses, curly braces. And now comes the magic. So this is an if-else statement. We're going to say if, parentheses, this is the syntax. And then we're going to say home score. If home score, and you should know these symbols from math, the greater than or equal to symbol, we use that a lot in if-else statements. So if home score is greater than or equal to, you can chain them together like that, 42. And then we can make more curly braces and put what we want to happen if that's the case. So what we can do is we can say winner message, that paragraph that we selected up here. We can say winner message dot text content will be equal to, because remember it's just empty right now, and we can say home team wins, exclamations. Okay, and then we can say else if, so in other words, if that doesn't happen, we could say away score is greater than or equal to 42. And then curly braces. And then we'll say, we can just copy, or we'll just rewrite it. We'll say winner message. We want it to say winner message dot text content equals, and then away team wins. Okay. So I'm not sure if that's going to work, but that's an if-else statement. So if, else, if, and then there's also something called else. But we'll go over that in the other lessons. Don't worry about that. Just know that this is the thing. This is the bread and butter. If-else statement, guys, they are running constantly when you're online using web applications or websites. These are always running in the background, determining like what to do next if you click a button or do something. Okay, these are a huge part of programming. And you'll see, guys, it's not working yet. We're not getting any messages or anything. Now that's because we have to see our function here. We put this block of code that makes decisions in a function so that we can call it whenever necessary. So what we actually have to do now to get JavaScript to acknowledge our code is to call it on our buttons, so that as we click buttons and increase the score, JavaScript knows to call that function to constantly check every time we click, hey, are the scores 42 and above? Do I need to display the message? We need it to make that decision every time we click a button so that it knows what's going on. So what we have to do here, and we can get rid of this console log, is we need to call the function in all of our button clicks for all 6 buttons. So what we'll do is we'll just go below here, and we'll say winner logic parentheses, and that's how you call the function, okay? So let's copy and paste that and put it below all of our button click functions or event listener functions, because it has to call it on every button. But this is the beauty of functions, guys. See, now this is a great illustration of why we use functions. Now we have that block of code, and whenever I need to call it somewhere, I can just copy paste the name of the function with parentheses and it'll call it. If functions didn't exist, we would have to rewrite this if-else statement or put it in every function, which would take a lot longer, right? So this is, again, a lot of coding is just saving stuff in blocks of code, whether that be a variable or a function or other stuff that we're going to learn about later, and being able to use it wherever you need it. All right, so let's see if this works now. This is the moment of truth. So let's see, score some touchdowns, kick some extra points, kick some field goals. And I think something did work because we got some, let's see, is the text here? Our text is still black. I forgot to style that. Let's style that text really quick. I'm pretty sure something just happened. You saw everything get knocked down because there's a paragraph there, but we actually forgot to style it. My fault. So let's grab we'll just grab the ID and style that. And we'll say color F5. Oh, it is right there. Home team wins. So let's just see if the away team wins. Let's score a bunch of touchdowns. Away team wins. It's there. Sweet. So let's just style this up a little bit better. Let's say text align center. Give it some padding on the top. We'll say padding top 2.5 rem. Bring it down a little bit. And then we'll do font size 21 pixels. Okay. And I think that's good. It's pretty much identical to our other one. So again, let's do that one more time. Do touchdown, home team wins. So the home team already won. So if we increase the away score anymore, it's not going to matter. Say touchdown, away team wins. Cool. So that's some cool decision making there. Now, what we need to implement, and we'll do this in the next video, as this one's already getting too long, is we need our reset button to show so we can reset the scores. So we'll make that button and we'll write some code to make that a reality here in the next video, guys. Great job so far. We're almost done. Okay, guys, so we got our app working here pretty well. We get the team that wins and the text shows up, but we want it to be like this one where we get a reset button to reset the scores and get rid of the text. So we're going to build that in this video here. So let's get started with that. All right, so first things first, we'll actually make the button down here, and then we'll add our JavaScript magic after that. So we'll put our button, I'm going to go, see our scoreboard container is here. So again, we want to put it near the bottom of the scoreboard below all these buttons and stuff. So we're going to put it right here. And I'm going to just create the button, and it'll say, the text for the button will say reset. And then we'll add the class of BTN and style it up. We already have our button styles, so that's good. And then we got to put an ID on this thing of reset dash BTN. And then we'll put a type of button on here. And now we'll use some CSS to style this up really quick. So let's go to let's copy reset button ID. Go to our CSS, select it, and style it up. So we just got to do a couple things. One thing I want to do is, the first thing is margin. I want 1 rem margin top and bottom, and auto left and right, and then we have to also put this as, for now, just to show you how it'll work, we're going to say display block. And when we use margin auto and display block on buttons, it'll actually let the margin auto left and right work so that it will center the button. So that's how our button's going to look. Now, what we actually are going to do by default is display none. I do not want the button to show up until I want it to. So we're going to say, now that we know that what it looks like, we're going to display that as none. So now what we'll do is we'll go to our JavaScript, and we'll select the button with its ID again. So we'll just put this up here and say const, and we'll say reset btn equals document dot get element by ID. And then we'll just put our reset btn in here. And then we can go down here to our event listeners and add that. So we'll say reset btn dot add event listener. We'll call a function that will be named reset game. And then what we'll do is we'll go down here and we'll call our function. We'll say function reset game, or I should say we'll make the function. Okay, so when we reset the game, we just want to zero everything out. So what we'll do is we'll say home score will be equal to 0 for our logic side. Away score will equal 0. And now we have to reflect that, because that'll change to 0, but we have to reflect it in here now. So now we have to say, we'll do this one first. Away team score dot text content will equal the away score, which should be set to 0. And then we'll select a home team one and just copy that snippet of code in here. We want our home team to be text content to be equal to whatever the actual score is on the back end, which should be 0. And then we want winner message dot text content to equal an empty string. So we don't want any content in there because there shouldn't be a winner when we reset the button. And now, before we can do anything else, we actually have to make our button display when the winner happens. And to do that, we have to go back up to our if-else statement area, because if the home team wins, we want the button to display. If the away team wins, we want the button to display. So now I'm going to show you how to use JavaScript to actually do some CSS styling, because that is a thing. So check this out. We're going to say if the home team wins, we want reset button. We'll select our reset button, and then you can use the dot style method to actually style with CSS. So reset button dot style, and then we can say dot display, just like CSS, equals, and please display that block if the home team wins. And then same thing, we'll copy the same snippet of code, and if the away team wins, we want the same thing to happen. Okay, so let's see if this works now. Say touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Yay, home team wins. So if we hit reset, zeroes everything out. If we do this for the away team wins, reset, zero everything out. Now, when we click reset and we want to redo the game, we want this button to disappear. So that's the last thing that we have to do. So to do that, we're going to go down to our function. So remember, when we hit reset, the scores are zeroed out. We're going to display the zeroed out scores in the score boxes. We're going to get rid of the text content in the winner message, so there's nothing there. And then last, we're going to say, hey, reset button dot style dot display equals, go back to display none. So none. Save. Like, go away, go back to display none. And again, we'll go over this in future lessons. We'll practice doing some CSS styling with JavaScript, okay? But that's how you do it, guys. So now that should display none when we hit reset too. So let's check that out. So let's say touchdowns. Okay, we have a winner. Home team wins. Reset, 0 out, get rid of everything. Get rid of the paragraph, get rid of the button, play again. Let's say away team, man, they're blowing them out, they're scoring. Oh, away team wins. Click the reset button, 0 everything out, and it disappears. Okay? So that's really it for our app, guys. That's our scoreboard. We learned a lot here, a lot of new concepts, lots of functions. Now, this looks like, I mean, it's how many lines of JavaScript? It's 115, 116 lines of JavaScript here. But really, guys, we really just did a lot of the same stuff we just did in the counter app. We just made it on a little bit of a larger scale. So remember, the foundations of JavaScript that I'm trying to teach you is like, okay, you're going to have an element. You need to select that with its ID, or you can use class name if you use query selector, okay? You need to know how to select an element. You need to know how to use an event on an element. You need to know how to add an event listener and then a function, right? And then depending on what the user does, you need to know how to write code in your function to make happen what you want happen, which is, it's easy, right? TextContent does text. A lot of times when you're clicking stuff, you're going to be displaying stuff. So you might use, like I did, like display block, display none. These are the basics of JavaScript that once you know them, which you pretty much you're going to know them really, really well by the end of this course. You don't need those courses that teach you how to build. There's some courses out there that have 20-hour projects. How are you supposed to follow along with that, right? I'm going to teach you the basics like we're doing really well. We're going to keep hammering them down. And by the time I'm done with you, you won't need to watch somebody's 20-hour course. All right, guys, I've decided to add a little bonus video here just to teach you one more thing using JavaScript that's actually common, I've used it in the real world, and it would add an extra functionality to our app. So if we have our winner, right, 42 or higher, the reset button shows, the message shows, but we can still manipulate the scores here, which isn't a very good idea because when the game, if there's a winner, you want it to be over and you don't want your users to be able to keep adding to the score, right? So there's actually a way with JavaScript where we can disable all of our buttons so that the score, people can't keep clicking the score. So I'll show you how to disable buttons now because that is, it's a fairly common thing. And so, yeah, we'll go ahead and do it. So it's really not that complicated. All we have to do, we already have our buttons saved in event or in variables. So really what we can do is just select them. So we can say home touchdown BTN, and then we can use dot disabled, which is just another built-in little function. And then we can say that equals to true, which is a Boolean, which again, we're going to learn, you're doing Booleans in here in the background with if else statements, but true false in programming is called a Boolean, okay? So we can say home touchdown button dot disabled equals true. And again, that will fire when the home team wins. So let's see if it works. Touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Our reset button's here. Let's see if I try to click touchdown for the home button, look, it's not working, not doing anything. It'll still work for away because we haven't added that code yet, but let's try that with the other buttons now. So let's just select them all. So we'll do our next one, and then we'll add this. And then we have another button. Add that. So there's just a lot of copy and pasting here. We're just disabling the, if that works now for all the buttons, at least if the home team wins, right? Boom, we have a winner. Can we add points? No, 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 no. So it did work. So now we can just copy and paste all of this code over here to the away winner to make it all work if the away team wins. So let's have the away team win. Our reset button pops. We have our message. Do any of the buttons work? No. Okay, but now you can see we have a problem here where our buttons are still disabled. So we have to get rid of that. So I got an idea. Let's try to put all of these disabled buttons in a function so that we can just call the functions when needed. So let's go down here. and we'll write a function, and we'll call it disable buttons. And then we can just copy and paste all of this here. These are all the home and away buttons. And this is how they're when they're all disabled. And then we should be able to get rid of all this code. Rid of all that. And then we can just call the function whenever we want them disabled. So let's grab it. And we want them disabled if somebody wins for both instances. Okay. Let's see if that works. So touchdowns, extra point, everything is disabled. Okay, let's check for the away. See, our function is working. Again, guys, see how I just put that in a function to make our code way neater, way better, right? Just calling that function. So now we have the problem of when we reset, the buttons still remain disabled. So now we have to make another function where all the buttons are enabled and paste it in the appropriate area. So let's say function, we'll say function enable buttons. And then we'll copy, paste, change these to false. And then we'll put this function enable buttons when we reset the game. We want all of our buttons to be back. So let's call our enable buttons function in here and see if that brings them all back to life when we click the reset button. So let's have a winner. Okay, none of the buttons work. Function's working. Now if we hit reset, we want it to call this function at the end to re-enable our buttons. So let's hit reset, see if they work. Hey, they work again. Cool. Okay, we have another winner. Ooh, they won by 1 point. Reset. So none of our buttons work. Just to check again. Reset. And boom, our buttons work again because when we hit that reset button, it resets everything and we enable our buttons with our function. Okay? So I just want to show you that. It's a common thing and it's a great way to illustrate how good functions are one more time. But this is really the end of this one now, guys. All right? I'll see you in the next part of the course. What's up, guys? Thank you for checking out the complete web developer course. This is the most complete course on the internet for web development. It will help you go from zero to not knowing really even how the internet works to learning HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, and MySQL database. It is 100% project-based. There is no boring theory here. We keep you engaged by teaching you concepts as we build real projects, so it sticks in your head way better. There's 65 sections, 444 lessons. That's big numbers, right? Do not let that fool you because there's just a ton of lessons in here because I purposely made most of my videos 5 minutes or less because studies show, and I know from experience, that learning in small bite-sized chunks is much, much easier than learning from somebody who posts 30-minute tutorial videos, video after video. That's very draining. It's very hard to learn new material that way, especially something as difficult as web development, okay? Now, I want to stress to you that this isn't just a syntax course. Yes, I teach you the syntax, I teach you how to build stuff, but we also get into philosophy, how to actually make money with the skills, how to find a job. If you look here, I just made build your brand, and I introduce the idea and tell you how to start building your own brand as soon as you're done with HTML and CSS so that you can start making your mark. Very important video. This advice, this one video alone is worth the price of admission for the whole damn course. Trust me on that. We get through, you learn JavaScript, PHP. We build a full stack big application at the end of the course, a little content management system with full stack PHP. And then at the end, more gems. I drop gems, guys. How to make money. This is all just recently added. How to find a 9-to-5 job step by step. There's previews in the courses, guys. Look at the previews. Look at what you're buying, okay? I have course previews in multiple sections. Check it out. You can get free content that way. Make money freelancing. I've done that as well. We go over how to actually get paid. Again, this module alone is worth the $20 a month if you just want to even buy it for 1 month. Make money as an entrepreneur, the holy grail. What I'm doing now, I break down how I'm doing what I'm doing and how you can do things otherwise by just creating what I like to call a business system. So again, this isn't just a syntax course. You're going to learn a ton, okay? You're going to learn how to actually make money from these skills, because almost nobody still to this day who teaches these courses in this industry doesn't even cover that at all. They just teach you a bunch of syntax and kick you on your way. That doesn't help. You got to know how to actually use the skills, because learning the skills alone you're not going to get money rained down on you. I don't know. People still think that, and they still advertise this career that way. It's not how it works. You got to put the skills into action. So guys, just check it out. It's only $20 a month to get started. I recommend you just buy the whole thing. You get all future updates. This is a living, breathing course. Notice all these news that pop up. New. There's new stuff constantly being added. This is not going to be a static course, okay? Look at brand new full stack to-do app that I just added, updates, new stuff constantly. All right, guys, check it out. Thank you again so much for watching. I'll see you in the next videos on the YouTube channel.